Okay, so smoking is bad for you, but what about invisible cigarettes? I'm Tom Granger. I write about health, especially breath work, and I look for lazy ways to be healthy. I used to be a smoker a long time ago. Never a heavy smoker, like never 20 a day or anything like that, but a couple of cigarettes a week, it was kind of like, to me, it was like having a glass of whiskey. I'm not going to do that 20 times a day, but occasionally as a way of relaxing, getting a bit of a buzz. Yeah, I enjoyed it. And years ago I stopped. But there's something strange that happens, which is that whenever I have a stressful thought, my partner knows about it. She goes, "What's on your mind?" I go, "What do you mean? How did you know?" And she'll say, "You just did this." Because when I get stressed or have a stressful thought, I smoke an imaginary cigarette, which sounds crazy. But when you really think about smoking and what it is, it's like a mini breathwork session. It's almost a perfect mini breathwork session. I used to get asked by magazines to write articles. Can you teach us, can you write an article for our readers about what they should do when they get stressed? And you teach things like box breathing or 4-7-8 breathing, all these kind of popular breathwork techniques that are designed to almost be like a coffee break thing where you can just do it in under a minute, or do it for 5 minutes for a real change. And what I noticed was that they're very similar to smoking. Like if you imagine what smoking looks like, and I'm going to invite you to smoke one of these imaginary cigarettes that I have here. Very similar to breath work. Just go and have a cigarette right now. I'll have one with you. So get it. I mean, just in that, you notice that I'm deliberately breathing out slowly through my nose, and you probably did the same thing. Creating resistance on the inhale, doing a little breath hold right now. Elongating my exhale. I mean, just from that, my breathing rate's probably slowed to like 4 breaths per minute, which is super slow, and that relaxes the nervous system. I'm also noticing that I'm using my belly more to breathe, so it's like a sign that I'm using my diaphragm, which is very relaxing. I'm kind of exaggerating like how much I'd be doing this when I'm smoking because I'm talking, so let me just... No, it's pretty accurate actually to how I would be smoking. How's it for you? How's this cigarette? Sorry if it's not your favorite brand, but it's almost like this two-part breath thing happening as well, because I'm like breathing in and then allowing the resistance to remove as I take a fuller breath. I'm noticing that maybe using my shoulders a little bit, so let's just relax the shoulders as I do it. But yeah, definitely my breathing rate is slowing. I'm adding little holds. I'm doing strange things with my two parts breath. The other thing that I'm noticing is that if I was to do this when I was a smoker or just having a cigarette, right, most of this would be unconscious. And that's different to how we do a breathwork technique like a box breathing, because we're counting in our minds, we're deciding I'm going to do box breathing, in 2, 3, 4 hours. This is completely unconscious. I'm just naturally controlling my breath unconsciously, which is one of those weird types of breath work, because most of the time when we're doing any kind of deliberate breath work, it by necessity is conscious. We're deliberately doing it. Something about the habit of smoking a cigarette or this imaginary cigarette that makes it unconscious. Something about how you hold your cigarette as well. I mean, whether you hold like that, which is like how they sometimes paint Jesus, or like this, right? These are mudras. These are hand shapes that you would find in yoga, and my forefinger and my thumb are touching each other, and there's a lot of nerve endings in your fingertips. You can probably sense quite easily into your fingertips, rather than if I said, tell me about how the lower left of your back feels. Much easier to sense here. And so this is looking more and more like a kind of meditation, which, maybe you could let me know in the comments if you're kind of down with this kind of thing and understand history. Like, tobacco, as I understand it, was used as a ceremonial thing in the South American countries where it originated. You can kind of start seeing similarities here between smoking a cigarette and doing a breathwork technique, but also like the awareness that I'm doing, not to the act, but to the experience, is like meditation. So even though the act is unconscious, as I'm smoking a cigarette here, my imaginary invisible cigarette, I am like enjoying the breath. I'm deliberately paying attention to the satisfaction that comes with each breath. So, this begs a question, like, how much of smoking, it's really interesting noticing those breath holds I'm doing as I talk and smoke. How much of the satisfaction of smoking a cigarette that a smoker experiences is coming from the nicotine, and how much is coming from the way that they're unconsciously changing their breath, and unconsciously, consciously, or not deliberately, consciously paying attention to the satisfaction of the experience? How much of that is part of the enjoyment? How much of that is part of the reward? How much of that is part of the effect? Because most people would say, why do you smoke? I do it to relax. Well, that's interesting in itself. It's a little break that you have. It's a punctuation mark between activities in the day that allows you to stop and reflect. People probably go outside. Another reason that this is similar to things you might be told to do on a meditation course. You go outside, you actually get some fresh air. If you're working in an office, you go out for a cigarette. But everything that we're doing here is having an impact on my nervous system. These slower breaths, little breath holds, the resistance, the awareness, the presence, the fact that I've broken whatever pattern I was doing before. Still having a positive effect on my nervous system. It's down-regulating my nervous system. Nicotine is up-regulating. Nicotine is a stimulant. So it's almost like this strange thing where we're relaxing the nervous system on one side, stimulating it with the nicotine on the other, leading to a more balanced, maybe, oscillation, maybe, in the nervous system. The other thing that's probably changing is because I'm deliberately changing my breath to smoke, and I say deliberately loosely there, but I'm breathing differently than I normally would on purpose. Another reason that's interesting is that when you do that, when you hijack the breathing mechanism, you're overriding parts of your brain that normally unconsciously are responding to things like fear by elevating your breathing rate. And every time we do that, we get better. Apparently, this is what the science tells us, we get better at overriding the brain's emotional responses. So we get better at self-regulating. So maybe we're doing that with smoking. Possibly not. Smokers are generally stress heads. But maybe with invisible cigarettes, I don't know. Interesting. And as the cigarette's getting down to its last few tugs here, I'm noticing the warmth in my fingertips from the flame. There's a heightened awareness, right, as the experience is winding down. It's almost like the last few bites of a meal, where I'm thinking I should really savor these last few breaths that I'm taking here. Nice long pause after the exhale there. I mean, fire's cool as well. Fire has meditative properties. Like we watch a candle and as that cigarette burns down, sometimes we like to watch the glow and the... And if I'm making you want a cigarette right now, if you used to be a smoker or something like that, or if you are a smoker, I'd be really interested to know what's it like just to smoke an imaginary one instead. Like just to savor, just to allow your imagination to believe that you're smoking a cigarette. Not because that is tricking you, your body in any way, but because the impact of the act is itself the benefit, not the cigarette. Cigarettes are disgusting. That's disgusting. When you really, your first cigarette was a horrendous experience that you did because your friends that you wanted to impress thought it looked cool. Oh shit. So I'm interested to know what you think in the comments. Like, is that something that you would do? Do you think it's good? Bad? I've started doing it. Hit subscribe and check out my other videos, and peace.